Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me tonight to hear this year's guest speakers as a part of the College of St. Benedict's Renaissance Lecture Series. My name is Kendra Bukowski, and I'm a senior nutrition major and Hispanic Studies minor here at the College of St. Benedict. If there's one thing that I've taken away from nearly 8 semesters of nutrition courses, it is that food is a highly personal subject. Food is something that we can all relate to, that we share and experience each and every day. We have our own opinions and preferences on what the concept of food even means, and it has the power to transcend all boundaries, capable of uniting friends and strangers alike. Through places like the Full Circle Greenhouse and the Common Ground Garden here on campus, I have been fortunate enough to discover a true passion for sustainability and regional food systems throughout my last 4 years. No two people could embody these ideas better than Bernadette Martin Chapman and Clayton Chapman. Bernadette is a Benny who graduated in 1999. She credits the college with instilling within her a new way of seeing and serving the world. She said she learned that in order to contribute to the greater good, we must include both vision and passion in our work, and this is clear in her current work at the Grey Plume. Clayton is a graduate of the Illinois Institute of Art in Chicago. He worked as a chef at a number of renowned restaurants in Chicago and Omaha, and is a 5-time nominee by the prestigious James Beard Foundation. Together, they are the owners of the Grey Plume, an innovative, award-winning restaurant located in Omaha, Nebraska. The Grey Plume has been named as one of the most sustainable restaurants in the country, using only regionally grown food products, committing to a complete no-waste approach, and even building parts of the restaurant using recycled wood from a local barn. In every sense, they are true examples of what it means to incorporate sustainability, passion, and advocacy into our lives. And it is truly an honor for me to be able to introduce tonight's speakers. Please join me in a round of applause to welcome Bernadette and Clayton.
Good evening. Before we start, we just want to show you a tiny little clip of the Grey Plume. Good evening. What an incredible honor it is to be with you tonight. Clayton and I have shared an inspiring day with you. It is invigorating to witness the continued transformation on this campus, on the leading edge of exciting expansion through compelling thoughts and convicted actions. we would like to thank our deepest gratitude to you, President Hinton, for your sincere interest in our story and for your invitation to share it with all of you tonight. We'd like to thank Alyssa Brown, you're my girl, and Chef Paulson, and Professor Marsnick, and Professor Lindstrom, and the many other dedicated team members who've helped to make this week such a success and our time here so very memorable. And to you, students, thank you for your participation, your pitches, your shared ideas, your thoughtful conversations. You are the teachers in so many ways. And the Benedictine spirit of hospitality is alive and well, and it feels so good to be here. So I stand here tonight just slightly overwhelmed by the opportunity. Returning to campus encompasses an entire host of emotions. There's an overwhelming sense of gratitude, a little bit of longing for the days gone by, and a tremendous feeling of hope. You are the drops of water that will lead to waves of dynamic change. So tonight, Clayton and I would like to share with you our story of the Great Plume. We will talk about finding meaning, give you an inside peek to the mania of it all, but most importantly, we want to talk to you about how we've been able to redefine our own sustainability through our mindfulness. Clayton has a lot to say about that. So meaning. As a student, I could have never fully understood how my time here shaped me, and it seems like with every reflection or reconnection to this place, I feel its imprint even more. Last year, when I met President Hinton in Omaha for the first time, she asked me how the College of St. Benedict prepared me for the Great Plume, and the answer I gave her was nothing of what I really wanted to say. So I followed up with a letter, and I admitted to her that I was completely starstruck and tongue-tied at the opportunity of hosting you and meeting you, celebrity status. So in the letter, I gave her my real answer, and I explained that St. Ben's taught me that the visions I had and the passions that drove my life must include a thick thread of purpose that somehow, some way contributes to the greater good. And through my studies abroad in South Africa, I learned that I must answer the call that steadily beats inside of me to actively acknowledge and participate in those things that are bigger than myself. I share in the responsibility of seeking the common good. St. Ben's fostered this connection. St. Ben's forged passion with purpose and physical with spirit in a way that continues to serve as a guiding light in my life. I also learned that through personal discernment through different lights is an invaluable tool, and that the quiet, but more oftentimes the noisy and the messy contemplations are imperative for my own evolution and alignment as a woman. These fundamental self-truths that were explored at St. Ben's would keep leading me to further explaining the meaning and adding meaning to my life. And years later, when I found that myself at the crossroads, longing for a reconnection, I was able to rely with confidence on these truths, move back to Omaha, and come face to face with an unknown that represented the most unpredictable alignment, Clayton, and a reconnection of all things to food. There was an instinctive, electric, and undeniable desire to hitch my wagon and open myself up to a new world and a reality, and yet I was adding another layer of meaning to my life. So, the mania. I've always described being married to Clayton, the chef, is like hanging onto the tail of a comet. Sometimes it's like clinging to a fireball. You hang on for dear life as you journey through a creative process that's highly intense, methodical, spontaneous, and then ends up beautifully presented on the plate. Ingredients are like drugs for these people. And being in the weeds, as they call it, on a Friday night at 8:30 with 20 tickets on the board and a line cooked down, it's a chef's high. It's obsessive, it's irrational, it's fast-paced, it's always time-sensitive, it's constant pressure, and it's hot in the kitchen. It's Yelp reviews and James Beard chasing. It's the Food Network turning it into a ridiculous game. It's Hell's Kitchen, and it's the celebrity chefs wearing scarves in the kitchen. It's the health department and foodies. It's nights and weekends, and forget about the holidays. It is mania on so many different levels. And add the complex layer of being entrepreneurs in an industry that has no mercy, high food costs, and low profit margins, an industry where employee retention is always a struggle because we understand that we are just a stepping stone for many of our team members. Servers who are working through college or they have a second job, and a training ground for culinary students who for some will go on to realize their own dreams of opening up a restaurant. It's even more mania. And then add our two beautiful jewels, Hudson and Scarlett. Amazing mania. It's completely unconventional. It's a schedule that most families don't have or want, and it's a rhythm that most people don't understand. We are not immediately saving lives here. We are cooking pork 5 ways and canning 200 pounds of asparagus for the winter months. So why? Well, when the ideas started swirling about opening the Grey Plume, we had recently become new parents, and our perspective about the future dramatically intensified. Parenthood kind of does that. The dining scene in Omaha was not evolving. Chef-driven restaurants were an anomaly, and we were slowly becoming known for a city for how many chain restaurants and fast food places there were. In the breadbasket of America, in a city that was once known as the world's largest livestock market and meatpacking center, lie the biggest paradox. The disconnect between food and source couldn't have been greater in our town. And all of these things, and eventually more, led us to have some serious discussions and revelations about the town we lived in. At the time, the farm-to-table movement was exploding on the coast, but it was nowhere near Omaha. And the Grey Plume kind of came out of fruition out of a deep desire for change and to create the food that we wanted to eat. So when we started planning the restaurant, we conducted the market research and we analyzed the financials, and it worked on paper. It was sustainable. But as we continued to plan, we knew that in order to sustain this type of lifestyle for each other and for our young family, we would have to define our own roadmap for sustainability beyond the numbers. Our business model would need to include our convictions and values and reflect how we wanted our lives defined in a way. How would we be mindful of all of these things? Well, mindfulness turns out to be one of the largest contributors to our sustainability. We found by being mindful of our need for inspiration, by being mission-centered, and through conscious collaborations, we've been able to bring to light those things that are most important to us. These concepts have become the cornerstones of our business. So first, we need to provide ourselves the opportunity to be inspired and deliberately surround ourselves with sources of inspiration. We need to feel the ideas need to be birthed more often out of inspiration rather than motivation, because inspiration fosters creativity, and creativity leads to expansion. Second, the Grey Plume is mission-centered, and our mission is to provide a thoughtful meal based on sustainably sourced ingredients with a business model that mirrors that same transparency. And this mission is what centers us, and it keeps us aligned to our core values. It's the baseline from which all of our decisions are made. And third, our collaborations with our community remind us that we are part of something larger. It's a perspective that guides us to be selective about who we partner with and who will help us further our mission. So this is where Clayton comes in. Turning the ideas of the Plume into reality started with his insane desire to keep cooking at all costs. It's this inspiration that started it all, and it's what keeps it unfolding. So I'm going to turn it to him.
She's tough to follow. All right. So inspiration, I kind of see cooking as a craft with the ability to transform it into an art form. So I tell this story about how I started cooking because it really transformed into why I do what I do. So at 17 years old, I experienced the most memorable meal of my life. I happened to be in Chicago competing in a national best teen chef culinary competition. And after completely bombing the competition, like literally bombing to the point where they almost asked me to leave, my mom took me out to dinner as a consolation prize. She happened to take me to one of the hottest restaurants in the city at the time. And a lot of great meals start with what's called an amuse-bouche, or a palate opener. This particular meal started with four little plates on one larger plate, cucumber with black bean, pickled artichokes, infused basil juice, and a carrot parfait. All right, so it sounds weird, but this is like 15 years ago, and I still remember what I ate. So at the end of the meal on a kitchen tour, I remember the complete silence in the kitchen and the polished copper pots lining the walls. I mean, I was hooked. This was a drug for me, and I was bound and determined to work in that kitchen. So after high school, I moved to Chicago to attend culinary school, and in my first semester, I applied to this particular restaurant numerous times, to the point in which the chef told me to quit calling. I continued to call, and I continued to drop off my resume, and I was the youngest person to ever hold what's called the chef de partie position at this particular restaurant. So life in Chicago was intense, amazing, and fun. And 3 years later, I moved back to Omaha and wanted to start changing the way Omaha viewed food, and accepted a position at a local restaurant, a fine dining mainstay. So in the feeling of the best flavor comes from good practices, and I'll get into our mission. Go ahead. All right. So from the inspiration and the understanding that the best ingredients and flavor come from responsible growing practices, our mission is based on transparency and sustainability emerged. The Gray Plume embodies a menu that is guided by the seasons supplied by our local farmers and producers. So through our menu, we want our guests to be able to experience and highlight of the seasons by showcasing a tomato in multiple ways. This could be pickled, roasted in a marmalade, confit, so cooked in its own fat or in a puree. We work with over 70 growers in the Nebraska and Heartland area that provide us over 85% of our food. We work with school gardens to utilize what the students grow over the summer, and we work with foragers who hunt mushrooms in the spring for morels. We source bison from a rancher in the sandhills of Nebraska who has a closed herd, meaning he doesn't bring his bison in from outside breeders or other sources. All of his calves are bred, born, and will die on the prairie. He believes in keeping the great-great-grandmothers and great-great-grandfathers around because they teach the calves how to be the buffalo. The relationship between farmer and chef couldn't be more entwined, and it's a relationship built on mutual respect. A farmer's extensive knowledge of the soil or a rancher's dedication to his animals is mind-blowing to us. And equal to that is our admiration of how we represent it to our guests. We began a whole animal butchery program out of necessity because at the time when we opened, there wasn't a direct market for local producers to restaurants. In order to make it cost-effective for both the restaurant and the producer, we had to purchase the whole animal. We utilize all parts of the animal, including the bones, to make stock. So we work with growers in the winter to forecast and plan the next year's harvest. In the summer, we are working with our greenhouse farmers to help us plan for winter months. In order to supplement the endless supply of Nebraska root vegetables and continue to support our mission of local food year-round, we literally can thousands of jars of marmalades, pickles, and preserves. The canning process starts in May, at the beginning of the berry season, and gradually ramps up through the summer. So as we got further in the planning stages of the restaurant, we wanted our mission for transparency and sustainability to encompass all parts of the business. This included the way we designed the restaurant. So through our partnership with the Green Restaurant Association, we were able to open the Gray Plume as the greenest restaurant in America. I mean, it was literally a snowball effect. The Green Restaurant Association, they're a national certification similar to LEED, which applies to buildings, but this specifically applies to restaurants. It's been in application since 1990, and we have implemented multiple green initiatives, including recycled barnwood flooring, recycled insulation, recycled steel framing, recycled dry-fall, zero VOC paints, LED, CFL lighting. The list goes on and on.
As you can see.
So everything from our furnishings and building materials to water and energy usage, recycling, pollution, and chemical reduction to disposables. So it's a partnership that contributed to our mission in multiple ways by challenging us to see how far we could do to reduce our carbon footprint. So lastly, conscious collaboration allows us to extend our sustainability beyond our walls of the restaurant. It's a further connection to our local community and beyond. When you collaborate with a partner that shares a similar perspective, great expansion takes place. Take our partnership with the Arbor Day Foundation. Before we opened, my interest in coffee roasting began. As I learned more about the process, I wanted this to be part of the Gray Plume. We looked at every part of the coffee roasting process in order to be conscious about our mission, from the roaster to the packaging to how we sourced our beans. So the Arbor Day's mission is to promote and protect trees, and the Arbor Day Foundation provides us with shade-grown, fair trade organic coffee. The term shade-grown means that our coffee is grown under the canopy of the rainforest. So we've collaborated with numerous artists through an art center called the Hot Shops. The Hot Shops Art Center hosts over 80 studio artists, as well as multiple gallery spaces. We rely on these artists to provide our serviceware such as glass plates, clay bowls, platters and pots, wood furniture, and art for our space. One of the more recent collaborations is with Midwest Food Stories. It's a documentary series that explores food culture and lifestyle in the heartland. The farmers, the animals, the land, the chef, all equal characteristics in a story about sustainable food production, sourcing local ingredients in an artistic exploration of flavors and profiles that are true to the Midwest. So I recently traveled to the western Nebraska to participate in the first installment of the series, in which we are showcasing the entire process of how the elk ends up on our menu and harvesting the animal and breaking it down and preparing it for the plate. You ready?
Yeah. So the Great Plume continues to give us meaning to live through all the mania and to root ourselves to mindfulness, to stay inspired, to commit again and again to the mission and continue to grow and collaborate with those who work to see a better food future. So we believe that food is one of the most powerful and dimensional agents of change. When a connection to food is made in a way that takes you back to source, a forgotten perspective, a paradigm shift is possible. Food is elevated beyond nourishment and pleasure, and it becomes an agent for social change and environmental justice. When chefs are lobbying Congress for healthier school lunch standards, when the food we eat is picked by migrant and child labor populations that are largely ignored, when restaurants across the country are signing up to become sanctuary restaurants for those living in fear of deportation and discrimination, when our current food practices or agriculture are shifting from food crops to biofuel crops and are among the greatest contributors to global warming, when our leaders are making decisions about our food policies and deny climate change and disregard the science of food sustainability, you cannot deny the power of food. And we believe changing the conversation and the narrative of our food stories connects us, it breaks down barriers, it encourages compassion, collaboration, and allows a full circle approach to our lives that have been lost. These are the conversations we want to have with Omaha. We want our food to stir tastes and smells into emotions that transcend into discussions about the kind of lives we ought to live, the obligations that we have to each other, to future humans, to animals, and to our planet. So that's the Great Plume. Thank you. Oh, sure. We have time for questions. If there are any questions that you want to ask about the restaurant or about the things that we do, and sure.
Have any other restaurants in Omaha caught on? I mean, has this vision expanded in Omaha?
So we were one of the first to kind of embody the local food sourcing. I think that at this point there's probably a good handful that have picked up that tradition, and in all honesty, we're grateful for it because as a lone entity, we can't nearly support the local food economy like we would like to. So I mean, it really takes a village of us in order to be able to do it. So.
Where did the name come from?
Oh, the name. We get that question a lot. I guess maybe we didn't choose so well. When we were thinking about the restaurant, we had recently had a son. So Gray is named after our son, Hudson Gray. And then Plume is kind of a nod to kind of a dream taking flight as the feather floats in the wind, I guess. So.
Like you said, part of sustainability is also economic sustainability. You had to make sure it all made sense on paper before you could really make this restaurant happen. However, when you look at your menu and the food that you serve, to put it bluntly, it's not cheap. So how do you kind of reconcile that to giving the illusion that sustainability is something for the upper classes or someone who can afford to eat at your restaurant?
Okay. You want me to take it?
Yeah. No, we've had this question before.
Yeah, no, we talked about it actually earlier in one of the classrooms. We had a student ask us how we kind of, what our diversity of clientele is or how we kind of bridge that gap. And I think we try and do it in a number of ways. Yes, I guess the perception of value when you look at the dinner menu or you're looking at the pricing, it's really what you place your value systems on. Do you feel like spending so much on dinner, or do you feel like buying a new pair of Nikes? And I think that as a culture, we really kind of, need to kind of have a paradigm shift in how we're valuing the food that we eat. But from a direct economic perspective, I mean, we do. We have a happy hour menu that's a much lower price point entry, as well as a bar menu. Provisions, which we didn't really talk about, is kind of our retail counterpart to what we do at the restaurant, where we manufacture and distribute a series of cured meats and marmalades and jams and preserves, which are also a much lower price point to kind of be available in a everyday home consumer fashion. We do teach a series of cooking classes because we believe in, if the way that we're teaching folks to eat and how to source their food, if they go to the farmer's market and they don't know what to do with these ingredients when they get home, it's all kind of for naught. So we do this in an affordable way. So I suppose that we try and bridge the gap in a number of different ways. It's not directly represented on the pricing of our dinner menu, but it's more embodying all that we do from a big picture perspective.
Sure.
For your From Scratch bread program, I read about it on your Facebook page. Are you using locally milled flour as well?
We are for the most part, yes.
Where does it come from? Do you know, is it Grain Place?
Yeah, so Grain Place Foods is out of Marquette, Nebraska, and they are a mill for a lot of local flours, and then they've been certified organic, I think, since the 50s. So yeah, it's a pretty incredible program.
What do you like most about working with farmers?
That's awesome. I think I love that they're so into what they're doing. They are always in an incredible mood and always willing to have a cup of coffee every time they drop off. Life just seems to be a little more easygoing.
Even though it's not.
Even though it's not, exactly. The glass is always half full instead of half empty, and I really appreciate that.
The one thing that I love about farmers, I have a woman who I've developed a very close relationship with. She's our goat farmer, and she creates goat cheese and chev and all those wonderful things. But farmers are always wanting to teach. That's the one thing. They always have some sort of nugget of truth that they are more than willing to share to help you either understand the herb that they're growing or the animal that they're taking care of. And so that's what I love about working with the farmers. That I don't get to work with them as closely as you do, but the ones that I do is I just love the fact that they're always willing to share and teach, and the kids love the goats. So. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the reception that your restaurant initially got, not from critics, but from the local community that was seeing this for the very first time.
Well, I think it was kind of the shiny new jewel, because Clayton had kind of started to make a big name for himself in Omaha at being so young when we opened, and so that kind of caught on, and then everyone was really interested in how to see this whole thing was going to develop. Like, what does green really mean? And so there was there was curiosity for it. What else? I mean, do you have anything to add?
I think that we were really curious. We didn't really know because we were opening a seasonally driven restaurant in a very conservative town. I mean, to the point of where, we don't serve soda. We make all of our syrups in-house because, we're not serving anything like with high fructose corn syrup. So when someone orders a Diet Coke and we have to say, actually, I'm really sorry, but we don't have that, but we have this. We didn't know if we would get a lot of pushback, but surprisingly, we've been given overwhelming support. And I think that, that has something to do with the food, but a lot of it has, I think, to do with the community embodiment or engagement. As it takes a village to raise children, I mean, we partner with so many people in the Omaha area, whether it's from growing produce to making platters that, really kind of believe in what we're doing. So I think it helps.
Yeah.
Do you, when working with the kids in their garden and the farmers, are they growing what you ask them to grow, or are you working with what they grow?
Both.
It's a little bit of both. Yeah. So explain that.
Yeah, so I think when we are
Sorry.
well-trained.
In the most loving way, do it.
Yeah, when we first opened, it was more of just taking on whatever was dropped off at the door. And usually we'd write the menu in a
Sorry.
three-part program where we would speak with the farmer on the phone and talk about what was getting ready to come out of the ground. So we'd write a menu, and then we'd write a menu again based on what actually showed up because of whatever unforeseen reason, turnips fell off the truck or hail or rain or whatever. And then we'd write the menu again based on who cooked what appropriately or didn't burn, etc. But now we've gotten a little smarter over the years, and we kind of forecast the upcoming season about 9 months out, or between 9 and 6 months, 6 and 9 months. So we'll work with the growers in December, January, and February. They'll plant everything in greenhouses and get everything started, and can kind of give us some type of a window when things will come out of the ground.
Do you pay attention to where they source their seeds, if they're Monsanto or if they're from Seed Savers in Decorah, Iowa, or you don't get that nitpicky?
No, we actually do, absolutely. And I think
Don't say that word.
that's good. I'll leave it at that. No, but I think the growers are very conscious and adamant about where they're sourcing the seeds, and a lot of them save their own from year to year. So.
I heard you correctly. To be the greenest restaurant in the country has got to be a phenomenal cook. Can you say a little bit more about just how you, given all the competition and thinking of highest tier restaurants in huge big cities across the country, how on earth did you pull that off?
I think when we got the phone call, we said the same thing. We said, what did we do? Do you want to talk to it? Or would you like me
About becoming the greenest? And
to? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, it was never intentional.
no, it wasn't.
So the Green Restaurant Association has what's called their Sustain-A-Build program. So it's literally everything from the ground up. And so we were the first restaurant in the country to participate in this program, and it really forced us to look at absolutely every physical structure that you touch in the space. And it all has purpose, and it all has meaning, and it all has a story behind it for the most part. So it was never intentional for us to become the greenest restaurant in the country, but it was really that kind of snowball effect where we said if we care about barnwood flooring and we care about recycled framing and FSC certified wood and all of these things, then we should probably care about bamboo pens that the servers are using and soy-based inks in our menus and 100% recycled paper that we're printing our menus on. And, well, what are we going to do with the menus when we're done with them? Because we can't just put them in the recycle bin. So let's shred them and send them to a local vermiculture program. I mean, and it was just kind of this
Yeah.
one thing after another that really kind of led us to that culmination. So.
Sure.
Given the environmental impacts of cattle rearing, was the conversation ever had about having a vegetarian restaurant?
No. Sorry, did that come too easy?
Well, we know that
Sorry.
we know, and I'm more passionate about it. The cows are the SUV of the food world, of the meat world. We know what their methane gas is doing. And we would rather probably cook, well, would we? I don't know, I guess. We have bison on our menu, which is a native prairie restoration animal that we feel very strongly about. You saw a picture of Dave. So we opened with bison on our menu, and we continue to work with Dave. And, in Omaha, it's a steak and potato town. So we're cracking that nut, but it's going to take a little bit longer to keep cracking it.
Going off of his question
question. Did you ever, or have you ever thought about opening another restaurant in possibly Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota.
Well, I don't know how we do it in Minnesota. We'd
I
have to
don't
start
know.
all over again.
Yeah, we would. You guys have some great cooks up here.
Yeah, you have some amazing restaurants in Minneapolis. We talked about it a number of years ago, right? Because the ability to grow, typically means more locations for a lot of entrepreneurs. And we said we don't necessarily really want to go down that road, especially with Omaha being full of restaurants kind of as it is. And so, we didn't necessarily feel like the population density was keeping up with the number of restaurants that were continuing to open. So, and kind of opening provisions is the idea of bringing a lot of what we do available to the home consumer. That was also an opportunity for us to grow in a different way.
Have you been approached, or would you be open to be approached to be a model for other restaurants in other parts of the country, whether it be Minnesota or whatever? Have you been approached?
Not as a model, no. I think we'd be open to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've been asked to open a restaurant kind of all over. We kind of, I think, at this point have decided to stay close to home.
But to be a model, you'd be open to share your experience?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
What would you, if you're going to try to maybe just give us 3 really helpful hints, would you give to our students who are thinking they want to start food-based businesses when they leave here?
Food-based.
Can we be maybe a little more specific as to what type of food business? Like manufacturing or?
Could be a restaurant, it could be
Okay.
a bakery, a food market,
Sure.
a store, something, something along that line.
Oh, okay, so a nugget of truth about food for opening. Well, the food industry, like for the restaurant, as I talked about, it is insane. And owning your own business is on top of that is insane. And so I would think that the young entrepreneur needs to be completely and utterly married to their mission. Because it is it is constant. And so that's the first thing, because I can tell, and I said this today, I can say that if we were doing this without the layer of personal conviction and personal passion in it, it would be very hard to keep justifying the sacrifices that we make for our children, for our lifestyle, and so I think that having that, especially in the food industry. Another thing would be, you always have to be reinventing. The food industry is changing so quickly, and it's so the idea of always being creative and keeping up with the new ideas and things like that, I think are huge. Anything you have to say?
No, I think that's good. It has to be passion driven, absolutely, because hours are long, margins are tight, labor is unpredictable, and oftentimes a stepping stone for people to get to where they really want to be with their career and in life. And so you have to be comfortable being part of that process, and you really become the coach as opposed to the player. So yeah, our roles have definitely evolved over the years. Yeah.
What did you take away from your experience working at that restaurant in Chicago that contributed to what you're doing now?
Sure. How much time do I have? It was an incredible experience. So there were 25 or so cooks in the kitchen at a time. I was probably the youngest by 10 years or so. So these were folks that had left executive chef positions from all over the country, walked away from money, walked away from titles because they wanted to go back and learn. To the point of where chef says, do this, you say, yes, chef, I'll go wash your car, whatever it takes. So it's an immense sense of discipline. And they were long, 16, 18-hour days. We got what was called shift pay, which was not a lot. So that sense of discipline, I think, carries over into all that we do and really gives us the ability to continue to do what we do on a daily basis. But we also had access to some of the most amazing, incredible ingredients in the country. And so really that kind of love for food, and we wasted absolutely nothing, which carries over into our mission completely. So.
So it has been such a delight to have Clayton and Bernadette on our campuses. Many of you have met with them in classes. Many more will see them tomorrow. But I would ask if you could join me in really thanking them for sharing their passion and their mission with us. And as I looked at their, hold on, Richard, I know you're eager to clap. I'm eager to clap too. As I looked at their mission and inspiration and conscious collaboration, mission for mindfulness, I said to Catherine, we should put the president's office in there, because those are the things that will get you through this life, having a mission, collaborating with others, and being inspired. And Bernadette said that she was starstruck. Well, when I walked into Provisions and I saw you and I heard Clayton and I got to go to Grave Plume, I was starstruck. And you were full on Benny when she, poked Clayton and was like, just explain it. That's the Benny. And that's
That explains it, right?
and that's what we love. So please join me in thanking them for being here.
Thank you for coming.
That could not have been.